we back at it with we still don't know yet. I think I'm gonna be going about this a little differently this time. I still want to bring the interviews and all the knowledge, but I'm also gonna come with this segment called From the Goat's Eye View. Me being the goat and these being my perspectives. Some short videos, gonna drop some knowledge, my views of that knowledge, and just, if you're watching this, to give somebody something to think about, maybe something to see something different, to be able to see the hypocrisy or the excuse me, the bullshit in mainstream teachings, if that makes any sense. So the first topic in the Goat's Eye View segment is, did the devil lie in the Garden of Eden? Did he lie? I know that mainstream will teach it like, yeah, that's where he lied. That was the first lie, all of this and that. But let's look through the scriptures, and I'm gonna lay out the scriptures, and then I'm gonna lay out my perspective and why I think the scriptures back up that perspective. I didn't go looking for scriptures to prove my perspective, but I read the scriptures and then came up with this perspective. So the question, did the devil lie in the Garden of Eden? My perspective is no. Let's set some base here. What's the point of contention here, right? So let's go look at the original commandment of God, telling man not to eat from the fruit, from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, and how he goes about saying that. And let's pay attention to the wording too. So we're going to read Genesis 2:15 through 17, excuse me. And I'm using the New World Testament. I think that's what it's called. The New World Testament it's a 66-book Bible, so yeah, it's not the best, but whatever 66-book Bible you have comes from one, if that makes, that's another topic, whatever. Genesis 2:15 through 17. And it reads, Jehovah God took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and take care of it. Jehovah God also gave this command to the man: from every tree of the garden you may eat to satisfaction, but as for the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die. Interesting. Now in the verse 15, we see that, Jehovah places man in the Garden of Eden. And in verse 17, you see that that's where he gives that commandment that, do not eat from this one tree, from the knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and bad. You must not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die. That's it right there. You know what I'm saying? So now let's go to the situation in question. So now we have the commandment from God, don't eat from it, because the day you eat from it, you will die. Now let's go look at the little scrimmage between Eve and the devil, or the snake, to see, what was going on according to the scriptures. That will be, we're first going to look at Genesis 3:1 through 7. And it goes, now the serpent was the most cautious of all the wild animals of the field that Jehovah God had made. So it said to the woman, did God really say that you must not eat from every tree of the garden? At this the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but God has said about the fruit of the tree that is in the middle of the garden, you must not eat from it. No, you must not touch it, otherwise you will die." At this the serpent said to the woman, "You certainly will not die." Now pause. This is where people start saying that he's lying. But let's keep reading. Let's finish his statement. Verse 4. At this the serpent said to the woman, "You certainly will not die, for God knows that in the very day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and bad." Consequently, the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was something desirable to the eyes. Yes, the tree was pleasing to look at. So she began taking of its fruit and eating it. Afterwards, she also gave some to her husband when he was with her, and he began eating it. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made loin coverings for themselves. Now here we see the snake speaking to the woman. Here we also see Eve repeating the commandment of God. We see that in verse 3, where he says, "You must not eat from it. No, you must not touch it, otherwise you will die." This is Eve's perspective of what will happen, right? And here we also see that the devil refutes that with, "God knows you will not die. He knows your eyes will open and you will be like God." His exact words in verse 4 and 5 are, "At this the serpent said to the woman, you certainly will not die, for God knows that in the very day you eat from it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and bad." Okay, so this is the incident in question, right? Then they eat, and Eve gives to the man, they eat, cool. Now let's keep setting up more the base, more of the scenario here. We're gonna read next Genesis 3:8-11. So we're gonna keep reading. It says, "Later they heard the voice of Jehovah as he was walking in the garden about the breezy part of the day, and the man and his wife hid from the face of Jehovah God amongst the trees of the garden. And Jehovah God kept calling to the man and saying, 'Where are you?' Finally he said, 'I heard your voice in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself.' At that he said, 'Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat?'" Excuse me. So here we see that Adam and Eve are now conscious. They're hiding from God. And God is looking for them. He's like, "Where are you?" And when he says, "Well, why were you hiding from me?" He's like, "Well, because we were naked." And God's like, "Wait, hold on. You're conscious of being naked, and the only way of you being conscious of you being naked is if you broke the commandment that I gave you not to eat of the tree of knowledge of what's good and bad." So, God's putting the dots together quickly here. So yeah, so God is putting he's putting the dots together quickly here, and he's realizing, like, somebody disobeyed my commandment. And if you keep reading, you'll see that Adam did some bitch ass nigga shit and started blaming his woman and all that. That ain't it. A man has to take responsibility of his actions. But there's one more text I want to read before we start breaking down and the analyzation and really get into, did the devil lie though? You know what I'm saying? That text is Genesis 3:22. So we're just gonna scroll down to the bottom of the chapter. Genesis 3:22 says, "Jehovah God then said, 'Here the man has become like one of us, in knowing good and bad. Now in order that he may not put his hand out and take fruit also from the tree of life and eat and live forever.'" And 23 says, "With that Jehovah God expelled him from the Garden of Eden to cultivate the ground from which he had been taken." So, with all these texts that we have read, in Genesis 2:15-17, we see God putting man in there in the Garden of Eden, and you see God giving man that commandment. In Genesis 3:1-7, we saw how the devil and Eve, they have their back and forth. Eve gives her perspective of what will happen. The devil gives his perspective of what will happen, going as far to even say as, oh, God knows this to be true. So in ways he's implying that God is lying, because he's like, oh, he told you you're gonna die, but he knows that's not true. So the woman eats and the man eats, and that's what we see in Genesis 3:1-7. And then in Genesis 3:8-11, we see God comes for man. He realizes that man is conscious. He realizes that man has eaten. And in Genesis 3:22, God does something interesting. You know, he validates the devil, in my opinion. And you can also, if you keep reading there, the question pops up, you know, why did man truly die? Was it because they weren't able to reach out for the tree of life? Or was it because they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad? But not the point of this video. The point of this video is, did the devil lie? So now this is where my perspective comes in. We read the scriptures, you see what they say. Did the devil lie? I want to go back to the devil's statement. And I'm going to break down the devil's statement in 3 points. First, let's read Genesis 3, 4, and 5. Chapter 3, verse 4 and 5. It says, "At this the serpent said to the woman, 'You certainly will not die. For God knows that in the very day that you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and bad.'" Let's break down the devil's statement here, because this is what is in question. Did he lie? So let's break down this statement, this lie, right? The way I broke it down was in three parts. The first part, you will not die. Mind you that he was refuting Eve's point in verse 3, that where she says, you must not eat from it, quoting God. You must not eat from it. No, you must not touch it, otherwise you will die. So the devil, the very next verse, he's like, you will not die. So that's what he's refuting, right? That when you eat it, you touch it, you will not die. The second point is that your eyes will be opened. Like this is the devil's statement. You will not die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and bad. These are the three, right? Let's repeat them. You certainly will not die. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and bad. So, for the devil to have lied, at least one of these 3 points in his statement, like this is his whole statement. I've broken down his whole statement into 3 points. So one of these must be a lie, right? Let's look at it. The first point, you will not die. I don't know. Eve said that her understanding was that you must not eat from it. No, you must not touch it, otherwise you will die. Eve ate from it and touched it. Didn't die. And if we go to God's commandment in Genesis 2:17, I believe, he says, "For in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die." That didn't happen. That's point 1. So point 1 is clear of a lie. Let's look at the other 2 points. Your eyes will be opened. In what is it? In Genesis 3:7, the scripture confirms that did happen. Their eyes were opened. Let's read it. Genesis 3:7 says, "Then the eyes of both of them were opened." Then the eyes of both of them were opened. So point 1 wasn't a lie. Point 2 wasn't a lie. So it has to be the third point that's a lie, right? Let's check it out. We're at the third point. You will be like God, knowing good and bad. Was that a lie? What does Genesis 3:22 say? You've already read that. Let's read it again. It says, Jehovah God then said, this is God himself speaking. Jehovah God then said, here the man has become like one of us in knowing good and bad. That's the devil's whole statement. His whole statement. Let's read it again. Genesis chapter 3, verse 4 and 5. At this the serpent said to the woman, you certainly will not die, for God knows that in the very day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and bad. They didn't die. Their eyes were opened, and God himself admits that man has become like him in knowing good and bad. So where is the lie? Where is the lie? Did the devil lie in the Garden of Eden? I say he didn't. What do you think? Thank you for tuning in to the first segment of From the Goat's Eye View. Hope y'all enjoyed that one. Did the devil lie? My scriptural understanding is that he didn't. Excuse me. If there's something I missed, please, by all means, let me know. That's what I'm here for, to learn. You know, we still don't know yet. Till the next one. Definitely gonna have a couple more interesting topics. Probably more videos centered like this. And we'll see about the interviews. But yeah, we're just gonna come out with the knowledge and really try to figure stuff out, because we still don't know yet. Appreciate you.